right now on Justice.
The working motive for this at this point is absolute madness.
Gunned down in cold blood, a sheriff's deputy executed, sparking a manhunt in Houston.
I can't hit him. He's been so nice to me.
Plus, Donald Trump, Mr. Nice Guy? Why is the Donald softening up on some of his closest GOP rivals? And as if she doesn't have enough problems defending herself, Hillary has to answer questions about a familiar topic. I go one-on-one with a top Clinton defender. Justice starts now. Breaking news, a suspect in custody after another senseless execution of a law enforcement officer. Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. This time it's a sheriff's deputy pumping gas in uniform at a gas station in Houston. Harris County Deputy Darren Goforth, a 47-year-old married father of two, ambushed, executed in cold blood. Shot multiple times from behind at close range while he was filling up his police cruiser with gas. The shooter hovered over him, and his killer continued to fire while Deputy Sheriff Goforth was down. And this is the man police say did it, 30-year-old Shannon Miles. The motive, nothing clear as of now. But one thing is for sure. It is a scary time to be a police officer in this country. Here's what Harris County DA Devin Anderson said today.
It is time for the silent majority in this country to support law enforcement. There are a few bad apples in every profession. That does not mean that there should be open warfare declared on law enforcement.
And joining me now by phone is the Harris County Sheriff, Ron Hickman. Good evening, Sheriff.
Good evening.
On behalf of all of us here, our condolences to you, to the Goforth family, and to your law enforcement family on the loss of the deputy sheriff. How surprised are you by this?
Well, in 45 years of my law enforcement experience, it's probably one of the most shocking things I've ever seen.
And with respect to what is going on in your area, you're in Harris County in Houston. I mean, we hear a lot of this kind of, rhetoric, about how cops are really the enemy. Do you hear that much of it in Houston? Is this something that is almost predictable?
Actually, no. Our area has been predominantly very low-key in regards to those kind of sentiments. We maintain a fairly high dialogue with a diverse set of our community. So this kind of incident really comes out of the blue.
And Sheriff, here he is. He's in uniform. He's got a sheriff's deputy. He's got a cruiser. He's on the job, I understand. I mean, it is clear that this didn't come out of anything other than, the most evil of motives. He wasn't doing anything.
In many cases in our profession, you anticipate certain elevated risks because of the activity you're involved in that accompany your occupation. Most of the time it's a domestic violence or a roadside traffic stop, but some altercation that is an outgrowth of your contact with someone. In this case, there was no relationship involved in any way between the deputy and the person who shot him.
And what do we know about the person who allegedly shot him?
He'd had minor run-ins with the law. He'd been charged previously for evading, resisting arrest. He's had a weapons charge, some criminal trespass kinds of things.
And was there ever a connection to a gun charge? I seem to recall that being the case.
Yes, he did. He did have a one-weapon charge.
All right. And the gun that was used, I understand that the ballistics match?
Yes, our ballistics report indicates the ballistics do match the weapon that was used.
You made an arrest in within 24 hours, Sheriff. That's pretty incredible. It must have been quite an endeavor by the department.
Well, in incidents like this, obviously, you marshal all the resources at your disposal. We had tremendous support by all of the state and federal agencies. Our local law enforcement community rallied behind us. And of course, as I mentioned, our district attorney could not have been more supportive for us. She stuck with us through the entire night. Her team was available and working with us as we developed arrest warrants and search warrants.
Yep. And that's the way it's supposed to work. Sheriff, how confident are you of the charges here? And is there anyone else that you're looking at?
By all outward indication, this appears to be the act of one lone gunman, and we're fairly confident the person we have in custody is the person who committed the act. We will go through the investigative process to confirm all outlying evidence, witnesses, or other details that we've as yet uncovered, and make sure that we have a solid case.
Was he talking, Sheriff, when you had him in custody?
We have had people interviewing him while he was staying with us, not under arrest, and then after as well. I've not been privy to those conversations, so I couldn't tell you how cooperative he was, if he was just in primary conversation.
All right. Sheriff Hickman, again, our condolences, but thank you so much. I know you must be exhausted. It's been a long 24 hours for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And with me now, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark. Sheriff Clark, what do you say? I mean, what's your reaction to this? Is it open season on law enforcement in this country?
Judge, I am too pissed off tonight to be diplomatic about what's going on, and I'm not going to stick my head in the sand about it. I said last December that war had been declared on the American police officer, led by some high-profile people, one of them coming out of the White House, one coming out of the United States Department of Justice. And it's open season right now. There's no doubt about it. Look, anytime a law enforcement officer is killed, a little of every police officer in America dies along with them.
And Sheriff, you know, as law enforcement across the country watches this, and I asked the sheriff, Sheriff Hickman in Harris County, you know, in New York and in certain Baltimore and in Ferguson, you know, no peace, no justice, no justice, no peace, and all the crazy marches and all the, you know, some of these organizations out there. Apparently in Harris County, this isn't something that was normal. I mean, can this happen anywhere in the country now?
Anywhere in the United States, and I'm tired of hearing people call these black activists. They're not activists. This is black slime, and it needs to be eradicated from the American society and American culture.
How do you do it, Sheriff?
Well, here's how you do it. I need every law-abiding person in the United States of America to stand up and start pushing back against this slime, this filth, this disparaging the American law enforcement officer within these communities. When these ugly people come out and start this and start talking this stuff on social media, to push back against it and demand people that belong to these organizations to get out of their town. There's no room for it. Look, the American police officers are holding these communities together, and we need the support of the people that we defend every day in order to get that done. God bless the Harris County Sheriff's Office. Kudos to that district attorney for acknowledging the war on police. But I'm tired of qualifying all these statements by talking about bad apples within the policing profession.
All right. Sheriff, I want you to take a listen to what Ron Hickman, the Harris County Sheriff, said.
We've heard Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. Well, cops' lives matter too. So why don't we just drop the qualifier and just say lives matter and take that to the bank?
Interesting reaction.
We need to hear more of that from everybody. I know there's been some pushback on that, and that's good. This whole movement, Black Lies, I've renamed it LIES, because it's based on a lie, the hands up, don't shoot. That's why I said this slime needs to be eradicated from American society and American culture.
And with someone like this defendant, and this is, he's charged with murder, and it is death-eligible capital murder, the killing of a police officer. You know, we saw in New York City with Ramos and Wenjen Liu, two cops sitting in a police car, I think it was Christmas Eve, just got executed. You know, someone in New York City comes after a cop with a machete in his hands. And this is happening all over the country. I mean, what impact does this have on law enforcement? I mean, do they back off, or do they just keep doing their job? Or are they like, you know what, I don't need this. We got 6 cops indicted in Baltimore. Why would someone even be a cop these days?
Well, we better hope that that doesn't happen for the sake of the rule of law, the sake of our way of life here in the United States. This was an assault on the American way of life, the American justice system. And if the American police officer backs off, we're all in trouble. Look, we live in a state of hypervigilance. And now we're going to have to turn that up even more. But the American police officer is strong. We will continue to fight back. We will continue to sacrifice ourselves for the good law-abiding people in every community of the United States.
And finally, Sheriff, the national rhetoric that's going on, you say that people need to push back and we need to see things when we see things on Facebook or on social media. You know, the truth is that people can say and do whatever they want. This is America. But without leadership, you know, there isn't going to be any different, you know, reaction. More people seem to be emboldened by this kind of thing.
Right, and that's why I said that the President of the United States started this war on police. Look, and I know what you mean, Judge, by that, but it's not absolute. You can't say anything you want in the United States of America. You cannot threaten people's lives. You can't call for the killing of people like we're seeing from some of these things. That is not First Amendment protection. That is protected. That is filth. That is slime. And, you know, there are some law enforcement implications that can be done with the Department of Justice and with states' attorneys' offices across the United States. I love the First Amendment. I love freedom of speech. You are not free to threaten my life or anybody else's.
All right. Sheriff David Clarke, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
My pleasure.
All right, and with me now is Deputy Sheriff Cody Caslas from neighboring Galveston, Texas, not far from where this murder took place. All right, you are a deputy sheriff also. And, you know, do you relate to the Deputy Sheriff Goforth and what happened to him?
Very much so. It's a sad state of affairs, what's going on in this country with take police officers out, do whatever you can, stalk them, and nothing is being said from the top down. And Sheriff Clarke is correct when he says that the silence from the White House is empowering these people.
And but you know, it's so surprising to see it where you live. I mean, you're in Galveston. You're an adjoining county to this county. I mean, you're a deputy sheriff. Would you expect anything like this to happen to you if you're just pumping gas?
Well, I would hope not. But in the last few years, you start looking around more. It makes you more cognizant of your surrounding. One of the things that gets police officers killed, unfortunately, is complacency. With the attitude now going on nationally, police officers can't afford to do that. You have to have your head on a swivel at all times.
Okay, but you can't prevent something like this from happening. I mean, he's pumping gas. I mean, this is an execution, straight up execution, no warning, no nothing, just open fire. Do you see people joining law enforcement now? I mean, what is the incentive now?
Well, the incentive is the same incentive as it always has been, to try to make where you live a better place to be. That's not going to change. Police officers aren't going to just say, we've had enough, and take their badges off and their guns off and go home. That's not going to happen.
But police officers, don't you agree that they may pull back and say, you know what, I'm not going to do this, you know, because I don't need the problem. Look at the cops in Baltimore. 6 cops indicted in the Freddie Gray situation. I mean, it's almost as though you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And, you know, if you got bad luck, you're going to get shot in the back.
You can be taken out at any moment. As the sheriff said earlier, in domestic violence cases that you go those calls on, or a traffic stop, those are usually the most dangerous. Can you protect yourself 24/7? Do you have eyes in the back of your head? Absolutely not. So we have to be more vigilant, obviously. But something could be done from the top down. If the top would come out with a hard stance against these groups that are calling for these things to happen to police officers, it would silence a lot of it.
How long have you been in law enforcement?
28 years.
Have you ever seen the climate the way it is now in terms of the hatred of law enforcement?
No. It has gotten worse in the last 3, 4, 5 years. Even back in the 90s when you had the Bloods and the Crips coming up and
the gangs.
Yeah. It was never as personal as it is now. The police officers are definitely being targeted now, and from the top down, nobody's saying anything about it. You know, he'll send people to a thug's funeral. Representatives from the White House.
Are you talking about the president sending?
I'm talking about the president.
Right, and Michael Brown.
He'll send people to their funerals, and yet you hear nothing about police officers being assassinated. And make no mistake about it, this was an execution, a brutal, brutal killing, an assassination. He shot him in the back of the head and then stood over him and shot him several more times in the head. Brutal.
I know. Well, let's see what happens in terms of this case, and we'll all be following it. Detective Kaslas, thanks so much for being with us again.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to have much more on this breaking story throughout the hour. Plus, coming up, Hillary Clinton defending the Clintons yet again. That's ahead. Plus, why is Donald Trump suddenly playing nice with some of his GOP rivals? A Republican strategist gives us his take. Stay with us.
This is the same feeling.
Bring us your aching and sleep deprived. Bring us those who want to feel well rested.